Hi friends! You're wrong about sugar. It's not your fault. You've been misled. Most people don't see sugar for what it truly is. They just think of it as calories or fuel, especially when it comes to debates about brain energy. But ask yourself this, are you smarter just because you have more energy? How tall are you? Did you know that sugar makes your bones strong? Does your joints crack? That cartilage? Sugar helps to build it. The truth is, sugar isn't just for energy. It's a core building block for critical bone structures. But here's the catch. Not all foods with sugars are equal. The right ones are essential. The wrong ones, they're toxic. Here's how you can tell the difference. Don't you think it's strange that a cookie is viewed to be equivalent to an apple? Now, I think even a kindergarten knows that a cookie doesn't taste like an apple at all. And that's why 50% of fresh fruit that's given away for free in school lunches are thrown in the trash. Yeah, pretty wasteful, huh? You don't learn these bad, wasteful habits at school. You learn them at home. Social media has lumped all carbohydrates, whether it's natural or processed, as bad carbs. And clearly, I'm sure you know that the calories from a cookie is much different than the calories from an apple. But apples also have this red color. These are flavanols, which have been shown to improve people's memory. Cookies can't do that, even keto cookies. Now, this study examined over 3,500 adults over a 3-year period. One group was given flavanol supplements and the other had none. And the ones who took flavanol supplements had better short-term memory. Apples have flavanols. Cookies don't. Now, besides weight loss, fruit has been shown to improve blood sugars and improve people's diabetes and improve people's weight, even to help them lose weight. And it's not even fresh apples. People have done that with dried apple rings, despite the fact that apples, even dried, has fructose. And anyone who thinks that eating a piece of dried fruit is like drinking soda needs to get out and read more. Social media gurus have incorrectly lumped all carbohydrates as bad sugar or all fats as bad fats without any regard on food quality. And when you're eating, you're not just eating for energy. And I know it's going to get a little bit technical, but if you stay with me, I'll explain the difference and show you why these so-called experts are just off their rockers. Health is like a retirement account. If you get a bad financial advisor like Bernie Madoff, well, you can kiss your retirement goodbye. So choose your health advisor carefully, or you won't have health in your retirement years, or you just have a short retirement. What's even worse is if there's suffering in that retirement. Now, people lump all sugars in one category, carbohydrates, as if it was equivalent to glucose. They are not. And so many people are confused that this table sugar is glucose. It's only half glucose. The other half is fructose. And your brain uses glucose, not fructose, for metabolism. And the other part of the confusion is because preventing dementia is a different beast than treating dementia. They are not the same. It's just like people who have prediabetes versus people who have diabetes. When you have diabetes, that's a different pathophysiology in your body and in your brain, including your fat cells, muscle cells, pancreas, and liver cells. They all prevent you from metabolizing glucose properly, and your brain doesn't shut off your appetite properly. In dementia, it's even more complex because there's just so many ways to get demented. And instead of helping your memory and your body, social media and marketing encourages you to continue to confuse your brain, trick your body by advocating for chemicalized sugar substitutes. And people think, well, I'm not using a lot of it, just a little teaspoon. How could that be harmful to my body? Well, heard of cyanide? Do you really need a lot of cyanide for it to be harmful? I don't think so. So what's the default thing to do? Well, tell people to just avoid this entire category altogether. And even to avoid foods that have been proven to help people reduce diabetes, lose their weight, reduce their blood sugars, and fight cancer. Now, does this sound reasonable to you? The average American consumes 152 pounds of sugar. And that's not even counting all the sugar substitutes that people are using. And do you really know what this is? This is table sugar. Where is your table sugar source? Is this really from a sugar cane? I have a sugar cane. You see how hard this is? This is not the same as this chemical sugar. Indiana Sugar estimates twice the estimate made by the American Heart Association for the average person consuming sugar in America. Between the two, Indiana Sugars probably should know better because they've been in business producing, warehousing, and distributing sugar for almost 100 years as per their website. Now, eating a cookie with sugar is very different from eating this sugar cane, which is very different from eating a sourdough white bread, which is very different from eating an apple or drinking Concord grape juice. Only 2 of these foods have been shown to improve memory. Can you guess which ones? We are an energy-centric society, hyper-focused on fuel, whether it's for your car or your brain. And I don't get it. Everybody has enough fuel. There's an ongoing debate on whether or not it's better to eat starch, sugars, or fats when it comes to your brain health. And their answer is not so simple because it depends on the food quality. These right here is not food except for this guy. And depending on your food quality, your fat, your sugar, or your starches, even though ultimately they may have the exact same chemicals, will have different metabolic reactions in your body. Take, for example, this pen. Now, if I told you I was going to put this pen in a cup of water, do you think it's going to get wet? Not if I put this pen in plastic first. How about if I wrap this pen up in paper? Is it going to get wet? Sure, but it may take longer. And if I put both of these in plastic, then no, it's not going to get wet unless there's a hole in my plastic, right? And this is what is happening to your food. So when you eat fructose or table sugar in an apple, you're not eating it loose like this. You're eating it wrapped up like the pen was wrapped in plastic and paper. This apple is wrapped up in fiber. You see the outside? Why doesn't it rot? Because it's pretty much sealed like plastic. And even if you break apart the plastic, you still have the paper that you have to go through for my pen before it gets wet. Well, even if you bite through this apple, you're still going to have more fiber inside this apple that is trapping the fructose and the sugars that is in this apple from your digestive enzymes. So even if you dehydrated this apple and took out all the water, the fiber is still intact and will protect your metabolism from rapidly digesting the sugar. And this metabolic effect is not going to be like dissolving table sugar or high fructose corn syrup in water. It's not like drinking soda. So if anybody tells you that eating dried fruit is like eating a soda, well, they have to go back and just study basic physics in college. That isn't even biochemistry. We are just talking about the physical properties of a food. Now, pretend that I'm going to purify the fructose in the apple. So I'm going to make apple juice. And then I'm going to dehydrate that apple juice. So I've basically now taken all the fiber, the pulp out of the apple, and I'm going to put it in a separate pile. Now, do you know of anybody who can combine the sugar in the apple juice with the pulp of the apple that was taken apart to form this apple again, even if you gave them water? No, they will never be able to do that because they're not God. So let's now take that apple juice and dehydrate it into pure sugar, the fructose. And now I'm going to add it to your favorite dessert. Let's say your favorite fruit leather, your favorite dried fruit, your favorite gummy, candy, pies. Do you really think it's going to have the same physical properties as the whole apple or even the dried apple ring? No, they're not, because you're basically eating a chemical that man has processed out from this apple. People have taken apart nature and chemically combined it to make Frankenstein foods like candies and ice creams and pies and cookies and desserts that we all enjoy. They make them savory or sweet. Now, these foods are eye candy, and most people, they eat with their eyes, especially children. And even as adults, still seeking their favorite foods that they ate as children. But the problem is, many of the things that we enjoyed as children, they're not real food. They're fake Frankenstein creations. They're literally crap that you've eaten that has taxed your metabolism, causing you to have bad health. Concentrated fructose, I do agree, is a poison. It's been clearly shown to cause fatty liver, obesity, and insulin resistance. It clearly causes gout. It clearly increases your uric acid, and then the whole host of other problems and complications that come with fatty liver, insulin resistance, and high uric acid levels. And I can't blame people for wanting those foods because these Frankenstein creations that pretend to be fruit, even though they're not, whether they're fruit flavored juice or candy, they're all made out of parts and pieces of fruit and they're labeled with all natural, even organic. But all these labels mean nothing. Do you really need that label on an apple? Well, maybe the organic part, but the rest It's pretty much common sense that this is all natural. And as a result of this frustration, people are waking up fed up with a sea of ultra-processed carbohydrates looking for solutions on social media. And when you give up all processed carbohydrates, no matter who you are, you will significantly find benefits. And it's easier just to quit everything than it is to be more selective. But by quitting the wrong quality carbohydrate, you are missing out on essential fiber and antioxidants that protect your brain from chronic diseases. There is no plant that doesn't have some form of carbohydrate. Every part of a plant stores carbohydrate. Some just store more than others. So green leaves will store less carbs than this fruit. And likewise, antioxidants are more concentrated in some parts of the plant than others. It just so happens that fruits are super concentrated in antioxidants that you won't find in green leaves. So if you don't want to eat fruit, then you're missing out on the antidote that is helping you tolerate the waste products that are generated when you metabolize energy molecules, whether they be fat or sugar. Has your computer ever overheated? What happens? Shuts off, doesn't it? My laptop does that, so I have to be very careful to air it all the time. I actually have this fan that I have to put underneath to make sure that the air is constantly turning to keep my laptop cool. And your brain is like a laptop. It is the most metabolically active organ in your body, and it has first dibs for any energy fuel that you take. So every time you make energy, whether you're converting ketones or sugars into ATP, you will make reactive oxygen species and free radicals that will damage your brain. Ultimately, it will shut it off, just like the heat damages your laptop. But if you eat antioxidant-rich foods, like in this apple, it'll serve as a fan that blows away the reactive oxygen species and free radicals. So if you're not eating antioxidants every time you eat energy molecules, you're literally damaging your brain. And this is actually quite a slow process because you have 86 billion neurons in your brain. And dementia occurs when you reach that threshold of neurons lost, or if you've just lost the critical neurons. And the hard work needs to happen now to protect you from getting demented. But some people find it easier just to go on a ketogenic diet, right? Just quit all carbs. Most people don't. This diet was invented as a treatment for people with severe refractory seizures. And when you're on a ketogenic diet, you're basically eating 75% fat. That's not eating a high meat diet. That is very different. Meat is not 75% fat. And the only way to know whether or not you're in ketosis is to actually measure your ketones. So you literally have to test either your urine, your breath, or your blood. And generally, when you're in ketosis, you're going to have like a fruity smell in your breath. And if you've ever met anybody in ketosis, you know that that is a weird, unique smell. As a physician, I recognize that scent because I see people who are in ketoacidosis, and they're generally people with new onset diabetes. That's a life-threatening condition that needs to be seen in an emergency room ASAP. Now, just like dry fruit is not the same as soda, butter is very different from olive oil, which is very different from MCT oils, even though they can all be converted into ketones under the right conditions. And so if you're a vegan or vegetarian, you may be drowning yourself in coconut milk, coconut ice cream, because people have told you that coconut fat is good. After all, coconut is a plant. However, this is not a coconut. This is just the coconut milk. And I doubt your ice cream is made out of whole coconut either. It's usually made out of processed refined coconut milk, which is full of coconut oil. Now, and that's very different from this fractionated coconut oil with medium chain triglycerides or MCTs. And people like MCTs because they are rapidly converted into the liver by ketones. And I mentioned before that when your sugars are low, your brain can use ketones as a source of energy. But I also mentioned that it doesn't mean your brain will use the ketones in the presence of sugar. And that's because your brain, like the other parts of your body, prefers glucose.
Hi friends, I am so thrilled that you want to take charge of your health and take charge of your food. Now, I know nutrition can be complex, but it doesn't have to be. And I'm here to support you in this lifelong journey. So if you point your camera app to this QR code, it'll take you to a link for a free handout that I created just for you. And if you like it, if you want to see other handouts, please go to the link in my show notes and then you can leave me your feedback on what I could do to help you in your journey. Okay, back to the video now.
And when you have high insulin levels, that also regulates how much ketones your brain will use. And by the way, there really is no clear data at this time that MCT oils will actually improve your memory. And I think people somehow think the brain is stupid. We try to trick the brain with so many alternative fuel sources, especially when it comes to fake sugar, fake fruit, fake meats, keto cookies. We are constantly creating all these Frankenstein engineered things purposely designed to trick our brains and our metabolism. On the surface, our brain feels pretty good after eating them, but then our bodies feel terrible. So who's really being fooled? Because you can't fool your metabolism. Your brain can't control your metabolism. So did you notice that my MCT oil is liquid at room temperature? Have you ever opened a can of coconut milk? It shakes like a liquid, but it solidifies quite easily. That's because coconut milk doesn't really have a lot of MCT oils. Only 10% of the coconut fat is MCT. The rest are long-chain saturated fats, and hence lots of times you get a solid mass at room temperature. But sure, you can purify it to concentrate the MCT oils. And this fractionated MCT oil has 50% medium-chain fats called caprylic acid. The other 50% is capriic acid. But like I said, this only makes up 10% of the fats in coconut. The majority of the coconut fat are long-chain saturated fats composed of palmitic and myristic acids like lauric acid, and those elevate LDL cholesterol. And it naturally will have to, because your body needs a transportation molecule for fat. Your blood is mostly water, and water and fat, they don't mix. This is just basic chemistry. And the problem with long-chain saturated fat is that they don't get converted into ketones rapidly and literally stays in your bloodstream for about 3 to 5 days. So if you eat it every day, you can rapidly build up that savings in just a few days. And during this time, the saturated fats, they actually interact with your macrophages that are guarding your blood vessels. Now, your macrophages are an immune cell, and unfortunately, it has an abnormal reaction to fat. For some reason, they like to hoard them. They're like kleptomaniac macrophages hoarding fat, and they just get fatter because they can't get rid of any of it. So they become foamy macrophages. I have a relative who loves to hoard empty paper boxes. She's in her 90s, and her neighbors literally will give her their biggest, best appliance boxes, like refrigerator boxes, and she just stores them. And she doesn't discriminate. She likes to collect big ones and even small ones, like pizza boxes. She's been living there for several decades now, so you can imagine how many paper boxes can accumulate over a few decades. That's pretty much an inflammatory fire hazard, right? And I can see why she does it. A few paper boxes always come in handy when you need to store something or mail something. But hoarding anything collects a lot of dust over time. And dust is quite inflammatory to inhale because it's full of air pollution. It is really interesting how the brain gets a dopamine hit when it starts to collect things. Have you noticed that once you start collecting something, then you just want to collect more? And before you know it, your house is full of clutter. My relative has enough paper boxes to supply an entire neighborhood, and yet she digs in the trash for more. Now, whether you're over collecting paper boxes or collecting saturated fat in your macrophages, there will be a ton of inflammation that will spill over. And this inflammation affects your fortress. And I'm talking about this fortress, your body. You don't want to build up clutter in your arteries. That clutter is called plaque. And when those macrophages get turned on, they won't just collect fat. They actually start collecting calcium, and they behave more like bone cells building bone. Now, do you want bone fragments in your blood vessels? Not I. And this is why I don't take calcium supplements. And I keep my dietary saturated fats low because I don't want foamy macrophages. Now, if you have a choice between eating fat and glucose, just know that the brain always prefers glucose. It's a quicker, more efficient energy source. And glucose is the specific sugar that I consider essential for your health. Not all sugars are glucose. And I know that your body can make glucose for energy, but many people fail to recognize that glucose is not just for energy. It literally makes up vital structures, including in your brain. Now, have you seen people put on those Korean face masks to hydrate their skin? Do you know how that collagen stays hydrated? It's a process called glycosylation. That means glucose has to attach to glycogen. So when your body is short on glucose, it's not going to be able to glycosylate your glycogen on your skin. It will sacrifice your skin. And that's one reason why when you're on a low-carb diet, limiting your access to glucose, you will be struggling with your skin health. Collagen is a basement membrane of your skin, but it's also the glue that holds the rest of your body together. The more glycosylated the collagen is, the more flexible and hydrated the function of the material. So bones and tendons have less glycosylation, so they're more rigid. But you want to be able to control glycosylation. Just like with anything else in life, there is a limit. And when you overeat sugar, like in highly refined sugars or high fructose corn syrup, you can get excess random glycosylation, which then caramelizes your collagen in the wrong places, ultimately leading to wrinkled skin and brittled tendons. This process is called advanced glycation end products. And guess what? Consumption of fructose is 10 times more likely to form advanced glycation end products than glucose. And this is another reason why, if you don't want to age faster, you should really skip table sugar, which is half fructose. But you also want to skip that high fructose corn syrup in your soda or your favorite energy drink. But of course, if you're a modern day influencer, you're only going to mention all the bad stuff with excess glucose and neglect to realize that the right glycosylation can protect your collagen from enzymatic degradation from matrix metalloproteinases, which are enzymes that destroy your collagen and elastin. UV radiation from the sun, well, it upregulates these enzymes that will break down your collagen and elastin faster to get you wrinkles. And there is such a thing as too much of a good thing, as proven by the plethora of diseases associated with excess sugar, including dementia. But the thing is the American diet really an excess of glucose? Or is this diet an excess of fructose, galactose, artificial sweeteners, and non-nutritive sweeteners, along with a bunch of different starches and fats that have no antioxidants? You know, all of these chemicals, they may taste good, they may even taste sweet on your tongue, but they don't have the same metabolic effect as glucose. And now we've made glucose the enemy. Blood sugar spikes have become synonymous with poor health. There are countless videos on YouTube with that headline. And since everybody's talking about it, then it must be true, right? Well, no, it isn't. Spikes in sugar are normal if you eat carbs. There is no data on what an unhealthy spike is. It's only a problem when those spikes don't come down and are prolonged for 2 hours or more. And contrary to what most people say, regardless of their fancy title, if you want to get rid of your prolonged high sugars, then you need to keep your fat low in your diet. And this only works if you don't burn out your pancreas. When your pancreas doesn't work, then you can't make insulin. If you don't make insulin, you just can't metabolize glucose. And therefore, your body will automatically break down your fat into ketones. And this sounds great, but it isn't. It's a condition called diabetic ketoacidosis, which is the uncontrolled production of ketones. It's actually life-threatening. And the solution before insulin was invented was to give people fat, was to basically put them on a limited ketogenic diet. This was rampant in people with uncontrolled type 1 diabetes because insulin is the only thing that can turn this off. Hence, insulin is essential for life. But when people have end-stage type 2 diabetes, they also become insulin dependent, even though they technically don't have type 1 diabetes. And even though both type 1 diabetes and end-stage type 2 diabetes will be dependent upon insulin for the rest of their lives, insulin isn't a free pass to eat poorly. Regardless of what type of diabetes you have, super high doses of insulin is bad, 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 because insulin causes arterial inflammation. And this leads to the bad complication of diabetes like blindness, kidney failure, heart disease, and infections. But remember, this isn't medical advice. Don't just start or stop any of your medications or change your diet until you speak to your own medical doctor. All of this needs to be personalized. And in the meantime, if you don't have dementia, then you understand food can be your best medicine to prevent dementia, or it can be the worst poison that will accelerate dementia. And let's face it, we all have to eat. And so you get yourself educated that food is not just fuel. It will literally make the structure of your body parts. You literally are what you eat, as proven by the bones of barley men, also known as Roman gladiators. Now, if they can find barley parts and other grains in the bones of Roman gladiators, then you can bet whatever you're eating is making up your body parts too. So if you're eating that crumbly cookie, don't be surprised that your body will eventually start crumbling too. And preventing dementia is the only way to go, because currently there is no cure for chronic neurodegenerative dementias or effective treatment. And again, your health is like a retirement account. Nobody else is going to take care of it. So if you want to reap the benefits of retirement, then invest in your health today. Now I'm going to take it to an even deeper level. Sugars are classified as monosaccharides, disaccharides, and oligosaccharides. Monosaccharides are single molecules of sugar, such as glucose, fructose, and galactose. And out of the three, the brain can only use glucose. Glucose is also how you measure your blood sugars. So if you eat cheese or dairy, you're also eating galactose. And if you eat fruit, you're also eating fructose. But you don't see galactose or fructose on a blood sugar spike because your meter doesn't measure that. And nor do you get the immediate benefit of fueling your brain. Excess fructose intake can act as a diuretic, meaning it makes you pee. And it can also be a laxative, so it increases bowel movements. Now, when you combine two monosaccharides, you then make a disaccharide. Table sugar is a disaccharide. It's called sucrose. This is made from both glucose and fructose. If you drink milk, you'll be drinking lactose. That is a sugar from glucose and galactose. And lactose is a super strong laxative. And everybody who's lactose intolerant understands that. The majority of the world is lactose intolerant, including me. And I can attest that if I eat anything with lactose, I feel like I'm going to pass out on the toilet. It's a horrible, gassy, bloated, diarrheal condition. And hence, I don't eat any kind of dairy. I don't even take lactase, the enzyme that can break it apart, because I figure if my body is rejecting that sugar molecule, then it's telling me I really should be eating that food. Two glucose molecules together is called maltose. The third category of sugar molecules is called oligosaccharides or polyols. And examples are raffinose, stachyose, sorbitol, and mannitol. And all of these sugars have different biological effects on your body. Sorbitol and mannitol are used as sweeteners, and they too have a laxative effect. Now, plants store sugar for energy in the form of different starches, but plants also use sugar to build structure. Now, did you know that the tallest living things on Earth are the sequoia redwood trees? They're estimated to be about 800 years old, and it's actually located in my great state of California. Now, the oldest tree on Earth is also in the state of California. It's estimated to be 4,856 years old. Now, I think we can agree that trees are pretty strong, right? To allow them to grow tall and survive. And what do you think the trees are made out of? Wood, right? And what do you think wood's made out of? It's actually the same thing that this piece of paper is made out of, because it's made out of wood. It's called cellulose. Cellulose is also the same stuff that people are putting to make your processed food high in fiber, wood pulp. And guess what cellulose is made out of? Glucose. That is how strong sugar molecules are. And this is a mistake that influencers are making when it comes to your health. They are ignoring the fact that glucose forms the structure of your body. And this is why having enough glucose molecules is vital to maintain the health of your body. This is also why when you fast or starve, you shrink. And the reason you will shrink is because your body is destroying self, breaking down your structure, breaking down your muscles to supply your body with energy, to supply that glucose to your brain, your eyes, and red blood cells. It will sacrifice your structure to supply energy. And sure, your brain can use ketones for fuel, but it cannot use ketones to build the structure of your brain, the collagen that you need in your brain. In dementia, you have missing brain tissue. You have a metabolism problem because you also have a structure problem. And as a result, you also have less mitochondria because you have less brain cells. So let's think about the structural role of glucose like candy. Now, when I was a kid, my mom would buy me Lifesavers. Basically, they're round, hard candy with all different kinds of flavors. I mean, they were delicious, but I no longer eat them because I got a ton of cavities as a kid sucking on Lifesavers. Now, I would suck on them because they were hard. My mom told me not to chew on them so that I don't break my teeth. She didn't account for the oral microbiome that was feeding on the sugar to make the acid that was causing holes in my teeth. Now, in high school, I was actually selling a lot of chocolate bars as a fundraiser, and I was my biggest customer. One day I looked at my box and there was just like 5 bars left, so I ate all of them. Every bar just deliciously melted in my mouth. They were so creamy. Had it been rock hard, like Lifesavers, I don't think I would have eaten 5 bars. And do you know why hard candy is hard? Because there's no fat in it. Do you know the difference between milk chocolate and super, super duper dark chocolate? The amount of fat in the chocolate. Super dark chocolate should be crispy because it has less fat. Okay, ready? Wow. So if you were to build a stepping stool to hold your weight and you had two kinds of material to choose from, hard candy or chocolate, which one would you use? If I wanted it to hold my weight, I would use a hard candy. And that's the structural power of glucose. In fact, cellulose is one of the strongest organic materials in nature. And this past weekend, I actually saw jackfruit on sale at the 99 Ranch store. It was 69 cents per pound. So I bought one. And I really don't remember how much it weighed, but the last time I bought a jackfruit, it was over 30 pounds, which I carried myself to the car. And I bought jackfruit because my son, he loves jackfruit. But unfortunately, he didn't have time to process it this week. So it was just sitting in my kitchen floor yesterday. So I turned it over and there were these brown spots. I was like, I've never seen that. So I just touched it and my finger sank through the fruit. So now I have these holes in my jackfruit, which means I have to now process that jackfruit. And if you've ever opened a jackfruit, you know it's not a small feat. I mean, it looks like a watermelon, but it's not easy like a watermelon. When you chop through it, your knife gets stuck, so you have to have a cleaver. Luckily, I always cook with a cleaver, but still it's so fibrous and sticky, you just need a lot of strength. But when it was ripened, the thing falls apart. And unfortunately, inside were still strings of cellulose that was holding the fruit pods together. So the jackfruit is just basically a bunch of pods that you have to dig out. And it's not something that you could just slice and eat. Cutting through it before it's ripe is more like trying to cut through a giant coconut that's like 2 feet wide in diameter. Ultimately, it took me 2 different settings to process the jackfruit and several hours because I was just basically tired. It just took so much work. I was scooping every single pod by myself and I had to like prick through or break the strings. It was just very, very cumbersome. And then eventually, I wasn't planning to take that much time to process any food yesterday. And so it just kind of messed up my schedule. And then I got tired. So I had to leave it. I went to Bible study. When I came back, I had this giant jackfruit, half of it, that was occupying most of my dining table that I still had to process. I didn't want to throw it away because it, cost me something like $15 to $20 for that giant jackfruit. And then I realized there's a trick to cutting jackfruit. You have to put your knife through the center as well as to the edges, so to cut the pods out. I didn't know that. So when I found that out, it actually half the time of me processing the fruit. But it was definitely well worth it. I put most of it in the freezer so that I can make like a sorbet for my son when he comes home, or he could just get the jackfruit pods as is and eat that. It's totally delicious. I consider jackfruits to be a superfruit. And if you want to learn more about superfruits, watch the next video.